everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is Zethu Zwane with Blacker to Health and Wellness Lifestyle. We are doing a continuation from last time's series on clutter and how it is just to go through your messy emotions and having that grace to being able to change. I just wanted to clarify a couple of things for everyone, just in case somebody misinterprets or misreads when Jesus said, okay, by the way, this is not your life goal, I want you to do this. I wanted to re-emphasize that when I went, no, hello, we've been working in this direction. When I did that, sometimes that will happen in your life or in your goals. I'm not saying that's the difference between disobedience and just having a journey with God, wanting to have that very close, intimate journey with God where you guys understand how your inner workings. And the reason why I say that, because I did have a moment where I was reprimanded. It didn't feel like the Holy Spirit is with me to comfort and to hug me and to hold me and to give me the overwhelming love that I had been receiving on my journey. It looked like no child. Okay, wow, I'm so sorry for that being in your screen, but it looked like it was no. Today, you need to harness your emotions. You need to work on your emotions. Part of that journey, I was already in that journey where I was supposed to be, not only just where you're supposed to be aware, but take in that growth, take in that maturity. So that one was different. So that's discipline when I was being disciplined for my ego flaring up, and then being disciplined because now I'm dragging my feet to what God has called me to do. There's a difference with that one. But when he says, when I'm saying what I wanted to encourage you to understand, that when God says, by the way, you now need to change your life plan, and you go, what? It's because you've been, I was coming from that background where you're so excited by your life experiences and so excited by, I finally get to hear God. First you're thinking, I finally get to hear God, not fully understanding that the devil is in there, your own insecurities are in there, your ancestors, all these voices are in the cultural beliefs, cultural messages are there, all playing into it. When you're deadlocked, focused on Jesus, though, in those moments, it can be exciting and it can be invigorating. And what I love about that storyline, having the openness to actually being like, and I was like, oh no, I wrote a whole life. I have a whole life plan. What are you talking about? I wrote it all out. Do you remember that? My goal planning is because allow that to be part of your journey. I'm just saying, don't be zero in onto something where you see what I feel like maybe sometimes what Christians go through, what I went through, let me speak from my own perspective, is when you get a testimony and God keeps showing off for you, there's a point where you feel like maybe this is where you're destined to go. And especially because it was playing on my idols of being like a career-driven person. And then only later on, but the more faith and the more you're built up and the more that God trusts you. My pastor used to say that so many times, and now I actually understand what he means. Trust you to take on the calling. Assignments, you want to call it that. The calling that you have on your life, you want to call it that. Then the more you because you've built up that faith that, oh yes, God has been there for me, even when it was an icky day, God was there for me, that kind of situation, to the point where now he actually says, I have something ordained for you to do and accomplish. So it then starts to go against your life plan. So I said, that's why I said that you should be open to the idea that, my life plans could change. Mostly because sometimes, what if your journey ends up being like my journey, where you're building that faith with God, you're building to hear his voice, and then you get into another level and you think it is his voice. I remember I reacted disappointedly at that one, and when I shut down, the Holy Spirit just kept on saying, you were supposed to go through this, you were supposed to go through this. And so I had a first testing of that warfare of just hearing opposing messages. And so then it helped me then realize the beauty of hearing God's voice, because there are all these competing voices that are not as grand and not as powerful as God's voice is. That's why understanding his character, writing down his character and his promises will help you just to go back to when you're like, why did I actually go after that one? And then for me in that case, which we will be talking about later on, it was, honestly speaking, I was chasing after an idol. And I was like, so really? And you have to look at the seasons in your life, because I felt as though I was going through I was in a good place where my idols were not there. But as long as you haven't dealt with the idols of your heart, the idols of, I've forgotten what they're called now, but as long as you haven't dealt with your idols, you're always going to be vulnerable to that. You're always going to be vulnerable to planning alongside those idols. And so once God wants to build that in you, then you will have time to then allow him to then navigate your actual path, so that when you ask, why am I actually changing this one? This is not what you were built for. But you were in your circumstances. I can show you my faithfulness, I can show you my character, and I can show you my promises. But this is what you are not ordained for. Other people might have experienced what I've experienced now, where you could be just living out strong, really successful, and then just not having any peace. And so you kind of realize that early. You probably found that earlier on, even before I did, where you deviated into the path that God has for you. So that's what I meant for that one. So I just wanted to clarify, y'all, I'm not encouraging people to question God. That's different. Where you go, woo, it's just like, woo, we were on a roll here, and then now all of a sudden you do a huge left turn into, excuse me, that's not my idol. You know what I mean? I can say that now because I know what I was actually chasing. But back then I was so confused. It's like, what can I say? Like, I'm swimming breaststroke, and then in the middle Jesus like pops up once you're like diving in again, or like going in for another stroke, and he goes, you need to do butterfly. And then, you know what I mean? You'd be confused when you'd be like, and then he's sort of saying, by the way, this race actually wasn't a breaststroke race. This was a butterfly race. That would just throw you off, right? In the middle of your swimming. Or you are a cyclist, or you are a baker, and in the middle of your baking, you're about to do a baking competition. He's like, by the way, you're supposed to be a fashion designer. And then you'll be like, where's the store for the... You know what I mean? What do I know about fashion designing? Where's the store? You know what I mean? So that's what I mean. But at that point, I'm saying I hope that you would have gravitated, gained that fullness, gained that passion, and you're on that roll. So that when he suddenly changes you halfway through, you're like, then you start looking on the other side. You're like, oh, they're all swimming butterfly. How did I, how did I dive in doing breaststroke? So I want to make it as plain and simple like that. You opening up a store is a little bit more crazy, because I feel like there's more emotional change into it. I don't want to get into that one just yet, but just I like the butterfly example, because it would be just really weird if you were in a 100-meter race and then all of a sudden he's like, this is a 100-meter cycle, and then you're like, where's the bike? You know what I mean? It would be very awkward halfway through that 100-meter having to stop and then be like, by the way, I'm not supposed to be here, guys, sorry. You know what I mean? It would just be strange. So that's how I felt like it was with me. And then it took a year to realize, oh, I see what you were meaning. I was diving towards my idols, and you were faithful enough because of your character to build, knowing that maybe he prioritized building my trust with him, my understanding of what love is, breaking down barriers with him, so that I could trust him when he says it's time to change. I've had enough time with God, so that when he says, hey, you are running, but you're supposed to be using a bike, I can be like, yeah, I'm supposed to be using a bike, bye guys, and be able to then like just drastically move my whole life because I've had that much confidence in him. So you're not there yet. If you're watching this, the assumption is you are not there yet. So right now, I just want to give you a definition of what is emotional clutter. So I talked about clutter and the generalities of the clutter. Today, I want to talk about emotional clutter. Emotional clutter is confused. confusing. Okay, it's when your emotions, you can't put your finger on what I'm really going through right now. I've had, some people will say that this is supposed to be a good time of my life, but I'm crying. Sometimes, in those moments, where our body wants to grieve some of the journeys that we've taken on. Anything can be emotionally exhausting. And so you come out of that journey and it's like time to celebrate, but I'm tired, Jesus. Like, I'm tired. What if you're not even there? You're not clear about your path. You don't have a goal. You don't have a life plan. You're not in a consistent schedule. I think one of the shocks maybe of like becoming an adult is that, school and everything is set up for you. And then all of a sudden it's the complete opposite. Yeah, it sounds like you're in the dark. I'm really sorry. My dogs are barking. So please forgive me with that. But it's so in the moment, you're just kind of like living just to work. There's no routine and you don't necessarily know how emotionally you feel. Do you feel lost? You feel lost, but you just keep pushing on. I sometimes feel like that is a good moment to then address those intertwining conversations that you have. Emotional clutter could also be your past. I wrote about that in my blog post, which I will link below. So emotional clutter in your blog post, in your past, could be that great example that I use in my first series with you, where a young girl, chose not to get married because somebody said something to her in preschool. And how powerful is that? Like, how small is a baby, in preschool to then have that kind of construct? And then that repeated uncomfortable, I'm not clear what this interaction is, but it's making me scared of personal intimacy. That could affect their whole entire lives, because then you will see that response to that confusion in their whole entire lives, with like struggling with friends or questioning friends, like playing that hot and cold. I spoke about it on my blog post on my dating series about being hot and cold. I said I don't like hot and cold people, but it's just because I spoke about it from a different standard, where you need to just be aware. Don't play mind games with me. I have that conversation with you. I think you're just used to people. I'll say, like, I don't know if you're used to people who you can just send these weird text messages and 20 text messages and then disappear. I'm not going to be like that. You need to I think you need to spend time with yourself and figure yourself out. I can't have that in my space. You know what I mean? So that one is for later, because now I'm setting boundaries around people. Also acknowledging that I'm not perfect, but I want to have some level of awareness. We can't be doing damaging things where we're poking each other, being like, am I cheating? Am I not? No, listen, let me tell you something. Cheating is not a game show. You know what I mean? I'm not going to win like 10,000 for figuring out if you cheat or not cheating. So you need to put yourself together and, breathe. So that's what I mean by that one. An individual who plays hot and cold, who's always questioning themselves, that could be something. For me, the reason why I wanted to do the body confidence is because emotional clutter could be, I had that where there were so many questions about your body. They're innocent questions. These are not like horrible questions, but it left me being like, is there something wrong with my body? And the worst part is, a lot of the girls, I have a curved shaped body, and so, but most of the swimmers, they were bigger up top, like they had bigger stomachs. So I was even like, why can't I have a big stomach? And those questions, they become unresolved. And so you find yourself, when I say you're continuously hiding your body for one reason, it becomes then easier to practice hiding yourself whenever you feel uncertainty. Emotions, I don't understand this emotion, I don't understand this interaction, I'm just going to hide myself for a moment. And so that's what I'm talking about when I say to the audience, like, oh, this is emotional clutter. There's a lot of untangling, a lot of undoing. The reason now why I absolutely loved having God along my journey is because, there's two things that happen. Okay, so he doesn't say to you, oh, you are worthless. Your body is weird, because that would be the opposite of Jesus. Okay, I'm just gonna throw that out there. It's either your voice or the devil there. So but then it says, oh, okay, yes, I am worthy. And so sometimes when you have confrontation with somebody at work, the underworkings is because maybe you're so sick and tired of having your body questioned. And then God, he responds to you by saying, but you're worthy. And halfway through, you realize the most unworthiest quality was probably my body. And so the shock of, oh my goodness, I've not dealing with this icky misunderstanding of why was I asked so many questions about this X thing? Why was I asked so many questions about why I live on the other side of the train tracks? Why was I asked so many questions about why my family eats with chopsticks? All those kind of like icky messes, they lead to then those emotions where we're now the swollenness of all of it, those experiences are now being demonstrated towards people. And then over time, as you know, again, I would say then just turn to the faithfulness of God. Say, God, I know I probably shouldn't be, close to being defensive or close to being sad or close to being disappointed when this happens. So I just need you to help me figure this out. Like, what is this emotion? And then over time, he can get you that one. Then another one could be like, why am I so obsessed with my career? And then a trigger for that one would be, it's because as a kid, maybe the financial security literally left you very vulnerable and life-threatening. I think maybe it's very weird to say that a baby felt like their life was being threatened. I wrote that on my Why Should I Forgive blog post, just to demonstrate that all these emotions then came in and started muddying a lot of things. And so we're out here wanting to untangle those interactions. So if somebody then felt as though at that point, this is like, as an adult now, you can communicate, oh my goodness, this is the end for me. I can't do this. As a child, it's very difficult to communicate that one, but you then get that belief system where the constantly living underneath such anxieties and worries leads you to be a very competitive person. Unfortunately, maybe if God wants to deal with that one other added thing that comes with it is competition and comparison, right? Because there has to be a standard to what you mean by financial security. So then you put a human standard, a lifestyle standard, a person standard, a house standard, a car standard, whatever it may be. And then it kind of makes you come across as selfish and loving of money. So over time, you'll find that part of your experience is what I've found anyway, is that God breaks down those barriers first before you notice yourself. I am so sorry. The whole house is here, okay? But before he breaks down those barriers so that you yourself then realize that, oh my goodness, this is why my past construct, this is what's the construction of my past, this is why I'm here today. And that led me to having an idea of, I never used to feel safe. So then your journey could be, for the body example, could be learning how to feel worthy in your own skin, worthy in your body, in your shape. You don't need to be, okay, I might do a YouTube video where I say, okay, girls, you need to put this dress on so that you can look, fit. Because sometimes when I want to look like fit, like 10 times buffer, I always have t-shirts that are stock, cut straight. But when I want to accentuate my curves, then I have something that sleeps on my body. And then, so that is a playful thing to being like, okay, I can, clothes were the OG plastic surgery. I can be so adventurous with my body. But what you're doing is you're appreciating my body, understanding that it can look bulky and athletic in 2 seconds, and then very calm and elegant in another scenario. All of that is part of your journey with going back. So God will be talking to you about, with that one, you'll find more of your journey being more about like self-love, feeling worthy. What does it mean to be a worthy person? Don't read Proverbs 31 just yet, because wait, actually no, I don't know why people find her intimidating, but when they break it down for you, it can sound a little bit intimidating. So I would say go ahead and read it, child. Go ahead and read it. It'll benefit you somewhere along your journey. If you then find yourself being very competitive, a career-driven person, the career-driven person is very particularly important to me, because one person died of cholesterol. That was the first death I've ever witnessed, and they were just covered in salt. And the thing that stuck out to me is like, what kind of lifestyle are we having? Then I met my coworker for 1 week. They passed out, died. Another coworker, diabetes. These diseases like cardiovascular diseases are increasing because our lifestyle is also actually changing. It's becoming fast paced. That's what they always write on those blog posts. And so the eating habits have changed to meet that fast paced life. I don't know why we are acknowledging and accommodating diseases more often, but that's something that is definitely out there. We are encouraging diseases. There's a tablet for cholesterol, a tablet for diabetes. I remember sitting in one meeting and it's like everybody had something and they're just they were comparing what they take. And so part of that one could be, God works in mysterious ways. You could be stopped. Like I said in my first example, someone can eat beef, you can't eat beef, because it will heighten that threat that exists. Maybe if your family is more prone to cholesterol, other people may not be. There's images that I know for sure I can't watch. I can't look at the moment, and there's videos I can't look at the moment because they just trigger you're idolizing a life that I know would not give me the most amount of peace, would not give me happiness, and it is not in the picture that God has for me. So I definitely move away from those ones because of that. But the only way to get there is just take on this journey. So I would love for you guys to go and read that blog post. Go and read that blog post because it's got a lot of examples. I've got clutters your past relationships. Maybe you've come out of really toxic relationships, and then maybe that person who just stopped. Yeah. But the problem is you only know toxicity. And I never dated, but I in my dating series, I said that a lot of screaming men were talking to me. So it was very weird. Like a very humble, very calm gentleman came to talk to me. And I was like, do you know who I am? Like in my head, outside you're like this. But inside you're like, do you know me? People scream when they talk to me. And it's like, excuse me. That has never happened to me my whole entire life. But it just took a year of being screamed at to kind of make that the subconscious standard. And that's wrong. You know what I mean? That's something that I had to go self-care. I had to go to my own value things that I talked to you guys about. I had to go read my values. I did not get screamed at. If you get screamed at, you need to have a timeout. If you repeatedly scream, then you need to have a time go. Bye-bye. That means it's not your season to be in my presence. You know what I mean? You need to go and talk to yourself, figure yourself out. Why you're screaming for a housewife? Hello? And then once you're ready, you figured yourself out, we can come and have a constructive conversation, unless you've met somebody else who is Gucci with being spoken to that way. I had to go back to my own values and then realize, the other gentlemen who displayed less aggressive, like body stance and like voice and everything was the most suitable character. Nothing ever happened, but it was just the fact that, then you accept that no, this one is actually what you look for generally. He passed that fundamental requirement that I spoke about on my blog. The only way you get there is just going through that journey. And so it's okay sometimes the emotional exhaustion I was saying with that one, because maybe you feel lost. Okay, so what am I actually supposed to be? But that's the exciting part, because that's actually then when you dig deep into your past, like I wrote on that episode, on that blog post, like your past, your feelings. There's so many examples in there. Your environment also plays a part. What people say to you continuously plays a part as well. So breaking all those icky ideas and finally having that courage to sit down with yourself and say, you know what, I didn't understand why they questioned me there, but it made me feel worthless. There was too much ambiguity, and hey, when you are ambiguous, fear is the automatic thing that people go towards. So I'm gonna try the next time someone is ambiguous with me, I'm going to try go in the opposite direction. But I need your help, God, because I'm hardwired in the opposite way, and I want to go your way. I want to try it. And give yourself the grace to make mistakes along the way. Give yourself the grace to take on those steps in that journey, so that it can be a fulfilling and a very heartwarming experience, breaking down those beliefs. And then finally, when you break down beliefs, it's almost like grieving. So the exhaustion of just sometimes transforming. Don't ever blame yourself. Don't hold on to that past self, and don't hold on to the shame, if there is, or guilt, insecurity that comes out of that journey. Celebrate every moment and write down the small testimonies that do occur, so that it can strengthen you to propel to the next stage. That's what we'll be talking about. I will be adding more. So next week, I will be just talking more about, how to then address physical and mental clutter in your space, specifically physical clutter. We'll be getting through some 5 top things that I think are absolutely effective in terms of like try Jesus out, recognizing that again, he is not geographical, he's not situational, things are going great in that house, so God must be blessing them, not my house. Things are going great in that country. That country is far more successful than my country. So, I might as well move. Hey, baby girl or boy, you can be anywhere on this beautiful earth, and God is still God. So having that list, please write down that list of characters. I'll link below from my Pinterest board of like building a relationship with God. Those are all the articles I've collected, and I absolutely love them, just because all of them repeat God's character. It doesn't matter how many times it repeats. Best believe, if your body is hardwired to dash into that other direction, I say just keep reading them, even if it's a little bit repetitive. It's just helping you untangle that usual, patterning, so that you can step into a beautiful, heartwarming journey that will be imperfect, and you have every right to have an imperfect journey. And I'm so grateful that you guys are here with me. Live a life of breakthroughs. Here it here with Zeti Zwane.